In terms of the Hindu tradition, I think this is less so. I mean, there's a sort of an affirmation of personhood in this, there's something that we might call a soul, right, in this notion of an Atman. But in the Buddhist tradition, there is this difficult to understand concept called the doctrine of no self. And it's the doctrine of an-Atman. So in the Upanishads, I was talking about how they're kind of postulating this eternal essence within every sentient being that's an Atman. And Buddhism is saying no Atman. So Buddhism is denying an eternal essence. But what Buddhism is not denying is that you exist, for example. It's not denying personhood. It's just getting you to sort of look at yourself and see yourself more as a process, right? The Buddha broke down a person into various constituent parts from, the body, thoughts, feelings, consciousness, memories, right? Broke it down and basically is asking where in all of that collection of things that make up a person is there something that's unchanging, that's eternal? And he basically sort of asserted there isn't. But he's not denying that there is something you, Doug, that kind of was born at a certain time, and that now you sort of inherit certain characteristics of when you were 1 year old and so forth. It's not denying that there's some continuity for you as a person. It's just undermining this notion that you're going to cling to me as I, special, distinct, separate from everything else. It's emphasizing, what Buddhism tends to emphasize more, is that you're fundamentally interrelated to everything else. What's known as the doctrine of dependent origination, that everything about you is dependent on an infinite number of causes and conditions, and that to see yourself in that way, to understand yourself as more like a process, not to deny that you exist, but to see yourself as a process fundamentally interrelated with all things, naturally engenders compassion for other beings, because you see your relationship and connection to them. So the Buddhist critique of some sort of Western notions of the individual and the Enlightenment, that we're autonomous, separate beings, actually they would say that feeds egotistical sort of ways of being in the world, selfish ways that I'm trying to affirm my superiority to others and collect more stuff and et cetera, et cetera. And I would contend that there is a similar move being made even within the Christian and Jewish tradition, that there is an effort in the teachings of Jesus to kind of diminish the ego and the self-centeredness, and that to kind of identify with what Richard Rohr is sort of writing about, called the Christ consciousness, something that it's a fascinating book, I think, that he's writing, Franciscan, Catholic priest, but writing about this presence of something that transcends our individuality, that is, in a sense, the essence of who Jesus was. And that if you understand that it naturally leads you to be a sort of more compassionate, loving human being and less selfish. So I think there's a compatibility there.